Hello and welcome to Center Ice Cardcast, your one-stop podcast shop for all things hockey cards. My name is Eric Andrews, also known in the hobby as Hammerhawks, and I'm joined by my co-host and fellow hobbyist Aaron Goldstein, better known as Crease Collector. So, Aaron, I know this episode has been one that's kind of been a long time coming. It's been one that we've been looking forward to for a while as well, just because of, what the topic is and the fact that it's happening. That, of course, being the Expo. So, this is our episode purely devoted to the 2021 Fall Expo, which, of course, Aaron, you attended in person. So, I'm just going to turn the episode over to you and you can kind of share your experience and some takeaways.
Definitely. It was such an exciting thing just getting back to the expo. I mean, the last one I went to was, I want to say, the fall of 2019, but it might have been the spring expo actually. So that was the last time I had been to one. And obviously, with the whole pandemic stuff, no expos at all. So I know that you did the national, Eric. And so I guess it was my time to step up and go to the expo. And it was something I gladly did because it was just so fun. Like I said, just getting back to it again. So my plan, and I definitely got to fulfill this fully, was to go for the entire weekend. So that was on the Saturday and the Sunday this past weekend. And it was so cool. Just like even just walking to the venue was just a cool experience. Like, getting my tickets all ready and things like that was just a really nice thing. Just something I couldn't wait for. Like, it wasn't even really about the cards at that point. It was just like, I get to go to a show and look at cards and just be around like other people who also like cards. Didn't think that was ever going to happen for a long time. And here we are. So that was really, really fun. So when I get there, first thing I noticed was obviously, for those who were familiar with other expos and this one, the hall had changed. And so usually we're in hall 5, I believe, which is a little bit bigger. And so this year, just because of some capacity limits, they had moved to a little bit of a smaller hall, that being hall number 1. And so just getting there and figuring out parking and walking to hall number 1 just was a little bit different. And then getting there and getting your COVID screening and getting, your wristbands and things and heading on in was just a little different. But obviously, you got to do what you got to do. And so I did that and started my day. So like any expo, and because I haven't been there in so long, it was kind of like my first ever expo experience all over again. And that was back in 2011. And for those who have not been to an expo, it's the wildest thing ever. Like every dealer you can imagine is there, within reason, of course, and they're all packing a punch when it comes to hockey cards. And so you look around and all you can see is cards and a lot of them. And so it can be quite overwhelming. And so when I got there, it was kind of like that all over again, being just so overwhelmed with all the cards. You just don't even know where to start, because it's so easy if you really wanted to spend all your money in the first, 2 or 3 booths if you really wanted to. It's just that amazing. And every dealer comes to play and they definitely have a lot of inventory available and a lot of, cards that pack a punch and that everyone's interested in. So that's really fun. Besides the cards themselves, and as soon as you get right in there, one of the big things I did notice about this new hall was the layout that they chose. I have kind of mixed feelings about that. Reason being is because the way they had structured it is they had one smaller area with some booths, and then they had their kind of like cafeteria area in the middle, and then they had another area of the hall as well. And then they had, which I found out last night actually, is that there was actually a third kind of section down another hallway that I completely missed. It wasn't even really advertised at all. And so I had missed a whole other section of the hall with dealers. And not that I was going to find much there anyway, but still, it's just the point of having a good layout. So that part was really disappointing. And I know that it wasn't just me, it was a lot of other collectors, unfortunately, had that same experience where they either found out at the very end, like, oh, there's a whole other hall, like that's just weird, or they were like myself and didn't find out there was a hall at all, a separate hall there. So that was layout wise just extremely disappointing. Not that there's another section of the hall, that's fine. It's just that it wasn't really advertised at all. And so I actually passed by the entrance of it and thought it was like a hallway for the bathrooms or just a separate hallway for something. I didn't really have any inclination to check that out as if there would be anything more there. So just a little bit more advertising next time would be appropriate. And I know that some dealers would appreciate it too, because I had heard that some of them just were not happy being stuck in that part of the hall because of that very reason. Just people just didn't know that they existed. So aside from that, I did like the new layout. I think that aside from that negative aspect, it did give a lot of the dealers space. And so I feel like there was a lot more space to move around. Overall, I believe it was a little bit bigger, even though the shape of the hall was a little bit different. So I felt like just moving around from one section to the other was a lot easier. And I felt like maybe just me, but I felt like I knew where everyone was all the time. So if I needed to go back to another booth, it was very easy to kind of navigate. And so that was very helpful as well. So overall, I think the layout was good. But the fact that I missed a whole other section of the hall was obviously a negative. So I would say it's okay, but definitely needs a lot of improvement going forward if that hall is used again for the expo. As far as what the dealers had available in this hall, I would say it's just a lot of the same stuff. I mean, if you're going there for, those big investment pieces, the McDavids, the Crosbys, Ovechkins, Gretzky, things like that, you're definitely going to find it. I mean, you'll obviously find it every expo, but this was just, I guess, on steroids. Like it seemed like every single booth had those, 4 or 5 players, right in their display cases. And if it was not their rookie card, if it was like an autograph or an automatic card, it would be of one of those guys. So it just felt like it was really repetitive in that sense. And I don't fault the dealers on that. I mean, if that is going to make your money, that's totally fine. I mean, I would do that as well. They're just following what the market brings, and that's totally fine. But just a little bit more variety would help, because like as a collector who doesn't collect those guys, I felt like it was very hard to find anything else of quality because their display cases were kind of packed too much with those guys. And then it was tough to see at times what else they had available, like in their boxes, because, you search when you can, but there's no possible way you're going to get to every single card that's loose. You kind of just go past this booth and look in their display and then see if there's worth your time to go through their other stuff. But when every booth has the same stuff, you kind of gotta, if you're not interested in those guys, you kind of got to spend a little bit more time investigating to see if this booth is worth visiting. So that was a little bit odd because I can't fault them on that, but a little bit weird seeing every booth pretty much have Crosby, Ovechkin, and McDavid. So that was a little, in a good way, shocking because they're great cards, but definitely a little repetitive, I found. As far as meeting other people at the show, I didn't really get to do a whole lot of that. Part of it is just, I guess I had so much fun looking at cards. And the other part is just, I guess it's in my nature, just not to really seek out that kind of attention. But I did have the opportunity to meet with Jeremy from Sports Cards Live. I've been connected with him for a couple years now at the expo. So it made sense to, reconnect with him as always. And obviously check out, I guess, his newfound celebrity status in sports cards. Obviously, since creating his channel, he's been kind of making more of a name for himself. And so after hearing him over the PA, as he was kind of like helping out on the main stage, I made sure to, to go back to his table and see him after he was done that. So obviously a very nice guy. And aside from, how nice he is, he actually does have quite a nice, assortment of cards. I was talking about variety a second ago, and he definitely has that. He, of course, will have those big name cards, but he also has a wide range of players and a wide range of memorabilia cards as well. I said this throughout the show to people I was talking to, but I think he probably had one of the most colorful displays I saw. He had a few displays, but this one cabinet in particular was filled up, like literally from top to bottom. I'm not sure how much cards a display usually holds, but from top to bottom, it was all filled with the Panini Prime Mega Patch cards. And so he actually told me he picked it up from a collector, an older gentleman who doesn't have any sort of social media or anything like that, but just loved those patch cards. And so he was able to work out a bulk deal from him. And it also just goes to show you like what kind of cards are just never shown to people, right? Until maybe there's a bulk buy or whatever it is. So that was really cool, just seeing the quality of pieces that seemingly came out of nowhere for him to offer at the show. So that was really cool. I really hope that he had a good show, and he felt that a lot of big deals were had as well. And so I know he's very active at a lot of shows. And so I sensed that he was doing really well, and that's really cool too. I also met Amit as well. He's a regular on the forums as well, along with having his own little channel on YouTube. So it was really cool again to get connected with those people who we kind of talk to on the forums so often. And I also had the opportunity to run into a gentleman by the name of Ryan Krieg. I see him on the Facebook groups a lot. He also has a little podcast as well, revolving around hockey cards. He is someone who is sort of new to, I guess, the modern day part of the hobby after collecting as a kid. And it was cool, like seeing him from Instagram and stuff, and then actually meeting him in person was really, really nice. So super nice guy. And, he had a lot of nice cards to share at the show. And hopefully his weekend finished up well. I also met someone who recognized me through the podcast, which is really cool. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but he was working at the Players' Choice booth. And I was looking through there, and he kind of just approached me and said, "Hey, like I listen to your podcast and I'm a fan. You run it with Eric Andrews as well." And I said, "Yes, I do." And, it was really nice talking to him. And, it was funny. He knew Eric's name as well. So I guess we're kind of famous now. So that was obviously a really cool thing. So I'm really glad that I wore my shirt, to show off, the podcast as well. So that was really fun. I got to say, though, I'm kind of disappointed. When I walked in the room for the expo, I was kind of disappointed that, tens of thousands of people just didn't rush me like at a rock concert and ask for my autograph. I mean, that was really disappointing. But I mean, hey, like when you're, as successful as we are, obviously, I guess you kind of expect that. But no, it was really fun, like being recognized for the show. And we obviously appreciate your support, listeners, whether in person or not. I mean, it's still pretty cool. So as far as the cards go, which everyone's really excited about, and that's why we're talking here, the best cards of the expo, I would say, is probably, the McDavid RPA. I mean, I know it's kind of like cliche, but that card was probably the most expensive card that I saw priced out. Whether you agree with it or not, I believe I posted it on social media too. It had a sticker price of $250,000. So I mean, that's pretty unreal. And there was also the freshly created gold PMG of McDavid, valued at a tiny 150 grand. So hey, those for me were like, Eric shakes his head, and I know it's a lot of money, but those for me were probably the top two cards, aside from the Enroth Young Guns. But I would say for me, like those are the cards that, you just look in the display cases, and there were many people always stopping at that booth, like just check out those cards. Would be probably the most expensive cards I'm probably ever going to see. Maybe if they bring the Gretzky one year, or, if there's another record-setting card like that, then maybe. But as far as in my collecting, I guess, history, that would be probably the most expensive card I'll ever see, is that McDavid RPA. Whether it's priced correctly or not, I mean, that's up for debate, but very, very cool to see something up for sale for, $250,000. That's just unreal. Speaking of the deals that actually got done, because that card that I mentioned just sat there over the weekend, I don't think it was sold. There was a lot of big deals going down. Maybe it was my lack of perception last time around at the expo in 2019, but it just seemed like this weekend it was just, you just heard just whispers of big deals going down. Like you'd be checking out a booth and checking out someone's really cool display, and then you have the dealer going back with a collector for thousands of dollars, like whether it be a trade or, a cash card deal or just straight up cash. Like there was a lot of dealings done like that. Or, when you talk to dealers and you say, how their show is going, and this might have been day one and they're already sitting there going, it's going great. Some guy just walked up to me and gave me $3,000, like right off the bat. Right. And that's just, again, I'm no expo pro, but it just seems to me like wallets were already half open, by the time the people stepped in the room. And that was really, really cool. There was a lot of diverse people there too. I mean, no doubt there was collectors like me, but there was a lot of, I guess, investor types as well. So I think that's what also fueled these kinds of deals that went down. But it was really, really cool to see that collector / dealer discussions and those deals that happened. I felt like it was a lot more than years past. And I think it means a really good, health standpoint as far as, this hobby is concerned. There's a lot of money and a lot of new collectors being brought in for good reasons or bad. I guess you have to be the judge of that. But Just, I mean, if there's deals done, I mean, that means that, there's health in the hobby. And I think that's really good from a bigger perspective. And so that was really cool to see as well. As far as myself and my pickups, because of those high deals, I was kind of priced out. And because there was only Crosby's and Ovechkins and McDavid's and Gretzky's, I didn't really need any of those, although I would love to have them. Just, I felt like anything, even stuff that I wouldn't really buy was kind of overpriced. Like if you're going for a lower end Crosby card, maybe because it looks cool, that's going to be priced like crazy. Same thing with McDavid. I had a deal that was super close for a McDavid card. It was an OHL card. It was a card that was released in like cereal boxes a couple years ago. And I'd seen sales for about like $10 or something. And so I'm sitting there like, okay, if I can get it for around, $10, $12, I think that's a really good buy. If I can get it for cheaper, awesome. Or if I have to overpay a little bit, I mean, I guess that's okay too. You're having fun at the expo, like that's no big deal. And then the guy quickly looked it up and said, oh, yeah, I'm going to need $50 for this. And again, like I don't mind overpaying a little bit, but I mean, $50, for that kind of card, it just wasn't my type of thing, so it was just a card where, I just had to walk away. And I felt myself walking away from a lot of cards like that, even for like Enroth cards. I mean, I didn't pick up any at the show, unfortunately. I tried to, because when in Rome, right, there were cards I already have, but I approached someone about an Enroth Young Guns card, and they quoted me like $10 a piece. And I'm just like I couldn't put the cards down fast enough. It was just sort of like, no way, I'm not paying $30 for a couple of them. There's just no way, like no chance. Like these cards are worth like funny story, with those Young Guns. I was kind of contemplating whether I should get one because I already have a few, but I'm like, you know what? Like I'm at the expo, like why not? So I literally reached into my pocket, grabbed a quarter, grabbed 25 cents, and then approached this person about this card. Like, hey, like how much is this card? And I was prepared to pay, 25 cents, like maybe a little bit more. I had a couple, coins in my pocket. And then they said $10. And just there's no way, like there's no chance. So I quickly put that down, and that was that. I also saw a small jersey card, and it was worth about $15 on the sticker price. So again, it just wasn't worth that much at all. So unfortunately, those were the only cards that I saw at the expo with Enroth on it. So was not meant to be, unfortunately. Again, it was unfortunately very overpriced, I found, but it was very fun, going back through cards and, and seeing everyone enjoy cards. I think that was really cool. Very, very nice. So I'm going to get to my pickups that I did actually pick up. What order should I do this in? I guess I'll do this. My first pickup, well, it wasn't my first pickup, but the first pick I'm going to show is a simple base card from 09-10, and it's Marc-Andre Fleury. And his base that year is really cool. It was right when they won the cup. I just love that photo, like right when they won it. I've always kind of wanted it for the collection, but I mean, a base card with shipping and handling, it just wouldn't be worth the price. So I'm glad I can pick that up. I got that for about like 25 cents for real. And that was really cool. My next pickup was for a couple of bucks, and it was a Dominic Hasek rookie card from 91-92 Upper Deck. So an iconic card, and it was obviously very much in the junk wax era. So a legend like that and getting his card for a couple of bucks, always really cool. And speaking of legends, I picked up two interesting cards as well. For those who remember the Hobby Regrets episode, I missed out on a Bobby Orr rookie card, potentially two, for free. So I decided for this expo, when I saw this thing, to get it. And it is a Bobby Orr rookie card. However, it's a reprint version. So it's very clean. It's the cleanest copy you'll ever see in your life. But it's totally fake. And that's okay. It's going to display nicely. And you know what? I finally vanquished those hockey card demons by achieving my goal of finally getting a Bobby Orr rookie card, even though it's fake. But you know what? It's good enough for me. And right beside it, I also picked up a Patrick Waugh OPG rookie, also fake. So, I mean, these cards from afar look totally real. So they're very well done reprints. I would have never thought in a million years I would pick up a reprint card, just not my style. But I mean, when you get them for under $2 combined, I mean, you buy the reprint rookies. Why not? I'm probably never going to afford the real ones. So I might as well just go, like I was going to say go big, but I might as well just go small and get the reprints. Okay. So that's what I did. And that was pretty much it card wise, just those four. So pretty underwhelming, but also kind of amazing in its own small way. So that was it for the card portion. I
Oh,
also,
wait a minute, wait a minute. There were five other huge pickups that you had.
good point, good point. I kind of didn't want to mention this, but Eric is going to make me mention anyway. But I also picked up, I guess you could say they were Enroth cards. That's a very good point. So I also picked up,
They're not Enroth cards.
well, I think they might be. So I also picked up, and this was like later on in the day on day two, I also picked up these sort of kind of not Enroth cards. And those would be 5 OPG checklist cards that have his name on it and are totally, totally part of my collection now. I've seen other collectors do it who collect a certain player, and they'll actually collect some OPG checklist cards featuring their player because it's super nerdy and only crazy people would actually do it. But I decided, you know what? When in Rome, right? So I saw this booth, and that was kind of my weird goal for day two. I was like, you know what? If I see someone with boxes of OPG, I'm going to look, you know? And so exactly on day two, I found that. And this guy was selling a bunch of OPG. And I asked if he had the following years. And he said that he did. And he had pretty much everything. It was awesome. So after checking the Enroth cards themselves, see if there was any, print variations or something like that, which there was not, I decided to hunt for the actual checklist cards that featured him on it. And I found one from every year that he was included in OPG. And yeah, so those are my random additions to the collection, which may or may not be actual Enroth cards, depending on who you talk to. So that was my card session that is now over. And I'm going to move on to I guess, my non-card pickups at the show. One of my first things that I got, and they both kind of relate to each other, was it's really cool. And this goes to show you what kind of stuff you see at the expo that you would never think of picking up before you go. But when you get there, you see it. It kind of just sucks you in a little bit. So one of the things I got was an official game puck from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it was during their centennial season, their 100th season in 2016-17. So that was a really cool pickup as well. I just really like anything from their centennial season. I think it's really cool when a franchise turns 100. And I think that was a really cool thing to get. And it displays right in my office right now. And that is just really neat. And another thing I got, I had seen a PDF version of this like years ago, but I actually found the print version. And that was again, from the centennial season, 16-17, was their official team media guide that they gave out. And so it has like bios on all the players that year, including Enroth, totally not related to why I picked it up, and a bunch of other cool stats. And yeah, just a really cool book. And even the front cover is really neat. And it also has some like AHL stuff there as well. So just a really cool publication, one for a Leafs fan like myself definitely enjoys. So that kind of does it for my pickups as far as the expo goes. Definitely not a lot, but some little oddball stuff, some cool key rookie cards with Hasek, and of course some absolutely awesome fakes. So those will definitely go in my on my little mantle. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what next time it brings. I think next time I'm going to be a little bit more prepared, like I was with day two. I mean, I did have a want list there with me, but it was really hard to get through all the cards. Like it's borderline impossible. Like there's just so many cards and so many dealers. Oh, speaking of dealers, I saw George Rock there on Saturday and Sunday. He's a beast. Like when you walk by him and say hi, he's just super nice guy, by the way. Really, really cool. And he's just a beast. And if he were to fight you, you would run scared. So, I mean, just a cool experience there. He was there with his booth that is actually selling some, top loaders and stuff. He has his own little company, as well as a card shop out in Montreal, I think. But that was a really cool experience too, and something that I didn't even expect to see. I was walking around on Saturday, and then I passed by this guy, and I'm like, oh wait, that's George the Rock. So that was a really cool thing to see. And yeah, just again, a super nice guy. And he was interacting with all the collectors, and he's a really big hockey card guy himself. And just to see someone like that, of his obviously his impact in the hobby, but just his legacy as a player is just really cool. And obviously, seeing him being a nice guy is also a really nice thing to see too. So that was a really nice highlight as well. Not related to the cards, so just really really neat. My overall thoughts on everything was, as far as the cards themselves go, I would say just the main thing for me was just how overpriced everything was, unfortunately. I mean, you're going to get that at any show you go to, whether it's a big show or whether it's a smaller show. Some people are going to have overpriced cards. That's just how it is. And sometimes it might be worth paying a little bit more for getting what you want. But I feel like everything was overpriced and they all kind of had the same thing. And so for me, I found that initial overall high pricing just kind of, trickled down a little bit into the other stuff. And so if you were looking for maybe a small to mid end piece, it was priced like almost like it was high end. And that to me, just as far as picking up things, it just made it very tough to do, especially from someone that didn't want to overpay for cards. Or at the very least, I don't mind paying fair value on something. That's not a big deal. But seeing fair value was very few and far between, I found, for the stuff that I was looking for anyway. But overall, it was a great experience looking through all the cards. I felt like, a little kid again, just watching everyone, including myself, just approach, a bunch of boxes and just look through cards for, however long. I think that was just a really fun experience. And, taking a look at what everyone had was really exciting. And seeing what this hobby has become in person was a really great thing. And for those who attended the expo, I mean, I hope you had a really good time. I would really like to hear your thoughts on what you found this year was like compared to other years, and just, what you picked up and what your overall thoughts were too. So, if you have any comments about what I've said, if you have any of your own comments, definitely feel free to reach out. But that about does it for me and the 2021 expo. And I'll definitely see you guys in the spring and in the fall in 2022 for the next expo.
That's awesome. And I think you just said something at the end there that, is a really good point. Being able to go to these shows in person for the first time in a couple years, it, obviously is exciting just to be able to do that again. But to see how the attendance and kind of the habits of the people attending and stuff are really a direct reflection of how the hobby has changed in that amount of time, since we were last going to shows. I think that's a really good and interesting point, and hearing you say that, I mean, that definitely was true for the national. I mean, when I was there, it's just like, this is crazy. Like, it is a zoo. So yeah, I guess I was even going to ask you, what the attendance was like and how that compared to previous years.
Yeah, it was like you said, it was very packed. I went there on the Saturday, Sunday, like I said, and from what I heard from the Thursday, Friday, it was pretty good attendance. But again, the weekend was probably going to be, that much more greater, and it definitely was. There was a lot of like during those prime hours, like there was a lot of people. I mean, and there was a little bit of a lineup to get in for both days. But I mean, hey, that's quite all right. Yeah, definitely. The hall was smaller, which probably made it feel like there was a lot more people, but there definitely was a lot of people there. And yeah, it was just crazy. And I just felt the ultimate, I guess, vibe of the expo this year was definitely a lot different. I mean, there was definitely a lot of people, like, which is fine. But like again, like just the overall atmosphere was just a lot of like financial, atmosphere. And obviously it's a show and dealers set up to sell cards. I mean, there's obviously going to be that aspect to it, and that's totally fine. But it was just a little bit different this year. I can't really explain it. There was just a feeling of, how much can I get for this? Because I'm going to have to turn around and sell it tomorrow or sell it to this other booth, 3 booths down from you. That's kind of the vibe. And people just stuck with, say, trying to swing a deal for a card. Again, not really to keep it, but just see how much they can get for it, the very next day, or even just, a 1 minute walk away. That to me was kind of the overall feeling. Was there collectors there? Of course. I saw even, senior aged people sifting through little boxes, to make their old bottle caps set with the players on it from like I don't even know when that set was, like decades ago, like little things like that must have been from their childhood. So you definitely saw stuff like that there. You saw kids there. You saw a wide range of people who for sure were not into that investing type mentality that we've seen infiltrate this hobby. And so I don't want to paint it like in a negative light. There was so much positivity that was seen by myself and experienced by many people, but there was definitely that cloud of differentness that we've seen in the hobby, and seeing that for real was a little bit different. It was a different vibe. Again, I'm no expo pro, so maybe this has been something that's been ramping up naturally for a couple of years now, maybe, and that's fine. And maybe, I just didn't notice it, but it just felt a little bit different this year. Not terribly bad. Like I'm still going to go back in the spring, but it's just going to be something to see, as this hobby continuously changes. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. And, I'm excited to see how the expo looks to go along with this, market shift that we're seeing. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good analysis of, of that aspect of it too. I like what you were saying, with that kind of the collector versus investor mindset. Obviously, like you were saying, the financial side of the hobby is always going to come through from the seller, the vendor perspective, of course. But, as the person on the other side of the table that's just attending, typically in the past, it has been just as collectors. I got that vibe a little bit at the National, that it was more, okay, I'm kind of a dealer as well, as the buyer.
That's a good
So,
point. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, it's almost like dealer talking to dealer, felt like.
yeah. So I think that was an interesting point that you made, and that it seems like that was a very prevalent thing. I don't know. I feel like the National it still had a collector focus, but I think there still was kind of more of a focus on the values of things, from the collector perspective. Whereas I think in years past, it's really more just like, oh yeah, like I like that card. Yeah, I think the price is okay. Cool, I'll buy it. Whereas this year I feel like I saw people looking at their phone to look up comps, like you were saying, like frequently.
Yeah. Like I've never heard the word comps said as much in my life. Like I've always used it as just comparables, but just the word comps is just like part of my vocabulary now. Like I feel old. Like, is that what the kids say nowadays? Comps? I'm out of it, man. I'm just gonna stick to my comparables, and that's all. And I'm just gonna die happy with my 10 cards.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, on Facebook you see comp a lot, so that's what I
Well,
say.
what's
But
Facebook? I'm kidding.
well, you are much older than I am by all of what, 3 years or something.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
I think you've said pretty much everything you wanted to say about the expo, unless there's anything else that comes to mind.
No, I think that's it. I mean, your little wrap up there definitely highlighted the points that I made. It's going to be interesting to see how, if this is what the expo is like in 2021 going into 2022, like where does it go from here? And that's going to be very interesting. And it's going to be cool to see that. And now that we're able to go back again, it's going to be cool to see that in person. And that's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to go. I know you were looking forward to it for a long time coming. So I'm really glad that you could go and enjoy it. And it was fun hearing about your experiences, fun hearing that you redeemed your Bobby Orr rookie card mistake, and picked up just a beautiful copy, emphasis on copy.
Total fake.
So, but yeah, and like you were saying too, like things like the puck, like I think it's really fun going to shows and getting stuff like that, because like you said, you would probably never just go on eBay and search for that and buy it. But because you saw it and you're like, that's cool, it's a good price, I'm gonna buy it. Like that's part of what's so fun about shows. So I was really glad that you got something like that, that kind of fits in that category. I guess one last thing to kind of put you on the spot, I guess, and we had texted about this a little bit earlier, but one thing that I always enjoy about shows is kind of just seeing what some of that really interesting and unique non-card stuff is. I mean, you obviously talked about that with the puck and the media guide that you bought, but as far as stuff that you saw that were not cards that, you just thought, oh wow, like that's really cool. I know you sent me a couple pictures of a couple things, if you want to talk about those for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, like there was some cool like US like artifacts, like some cool signatures on some official documents that was really cool. Another thing, hockey wise, was these old pair of skates. I'm not sure if they were for sale, but they were like ancient, like really cool looking, and that was really neat too. There was also like jerseys and sticks, the whole bit. You saw people walking around with like that was always really neat. Real Sports, I believe, set up their booth and they had a bunch of game used and team issued, gear. And that was always really nice to see and looking around there. Seeing what the pros wear is always cool. And so that stuff is really cool, like just experiencing that, something you can't experience every day and having it all be in one place along with these cards that you like also is very fun and it's very convenient. And that's something that was really cool. There were so many other things I saw though. Like for those who've been to the expo, I mean, every booth has something cool. Whether it's cards or non-cards or a combination of both is just really neat. I guess these sort of stay in line with cards, but I saw a bunch of old team issued photos or just random stuff like that I thought was really cool. I saw this one booth I actually went to. It was probably one of my favorite booths, actually. I actually saw a booth that just carried European stuff. And so old European card sets, like regional issues, like stuff like that was really cool. And I was talking to the guy and he's like, this stuff's really hard to find and really rare. And I'm like, yeah, like you probably have the only booth with this stuff compared to all these guys who have all the same things. And so I don't think that stuff really gets appreciated. There was this one gentleman sorting through a box next to me at that booth and saying, oh man, like this stuff is so cheap and it's hard to find. Why is this stuff so cheap? I mean, in my opinion, it's a lot rarer and a lot harder to find. But unfortunately, again, the market just doesn't unfortunately command, the big dollars towards that stuff. Unfortunately or fortunately, if you're a buyer. So, you can get that stuff on the cheap, but definitely cool pieces of hockey history that I feel are a little bit underappreciated. But hey, I mean that's the market right now, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Always cool to see what might be there because you really never know what you're going to see when you go. And that's part of the fun for sure. So, yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for this episode. It was really fun hearing about your experience and some takeaways, and of course, the things that you were able to pick up. So, thanks for sharing all of that. We will be having hopefully at least a few more episodes the rest of this year. We're hopeful that we'll get to 50 episodes, but we'll see. That may or may not happen. That might be pushing it a little bit too much, but we'll see what happens. We're definitely hopeful to get at least a few more in before the end of the year. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And hopefully we'll have some episodes coming pretty often the rest of the way. So with that, of course, we thank you for listening and appreciate your support, like Aaron was saying earlier. And of course, be sure to follow us on social media so that you don't miss any future episodes or just any stuff that, we post. I mean, I know Aaron had posted a few pictures from throughout the weekend as he was there, and it was fun seeing that stuff for sure. And of course, we always just post cool cards, whether they're ours or just cards that other people own that we see online and want to show off. So you guys can enjoy them too. So yeah, with that, definitely be sure to follow us on social media. Like I said, we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Centerized Cardcast and on Twitter at Centerized CC. Please also be sure to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss a future episode. Until next time on Centerized Cardcast, keep collecting those hockey cards.